went on the back of Cartoon Network and it was like a photo shoot of JG like in midair with like the keyboard. And then they were like, here's the photo of JG. Can you add Mordecai and Rigby, like, playing? So I think JG did a sketch, and so then I had to like clean it up and then do the color and then like implement both Mordecai and Rigby and JG all playing together.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another regular show Wiki interview. Today's guest was a model cleanup artist for the show across seasons 5 to the finale. His career, however, also expands far beyond just animation. Credited as Joseph Game, everybody please welcome Chogrin.
Hey, thanks for having me, Jordan.
I want to start from the very beginning. What was it that initially got you interested in animation or just art in general?
Oh, I gotta be careful with this because this could segue into a million things. So I grew up and I always preface this with everything. I grew up in Ecuador, South America. That doesn't really have to do with anything, but well, it has a little bit. I grew up in a culture where I was, I'm half Ecuadorian, half American, so I was getting kind of sort of like an influx of like American culture, but then South American culture is really, like I can only speak for myself. In Ecuador, we got an influx of a lot of Japanese shows. So like a lot of tokusatsu like Jiban, Live Man, which is Super Sentai, would later become Power Rangers here in the States, which will I will later segue into one of my favorite episodes of a regular show that I worked on. So yeah, it was kind of a mix of like a lot of anime, tokusatsu. I grew up with a lot of also like didn't realize until later like French animation. One of my favorite shows growing up. I had like a big cowboy phase. One of my favorite shows was Lucky Luke, which is based on a French comic, and just kind of sort of an amalgamation of a lot of stuff. But I knew that I was attracted to cartoons. I just like it was like glued to the TV, just like Saturday morning stuff like Ninja Turtles, Ghostbusters. Like it was just kind of sort of like a big melting pot of a lot of like stuff on cable and local TV stations. So it's just like that has been kind of sort of like been my it's a constant inspiration still today. I mean, I'm surrounded, you can't, well, you can see my books, but I'm also like on the other side of this, it's just a bunch of toys and stuff. So it's really fun thinking about it now because I haven't worked on regular show in a while, but looking back at it, how much that show is a love letter to a lot of like nostalgia and culture. So yeah, that's kind of sort of been that was kind of like my starting point for animation. It's just like watching a lot of stuff as a kid and just never really stopped. A lot of people, I feel like I don't want to call it like like a general thing, but a lot of people I think do start kind of stop watching cartoons and animation. I was the kid in high school that there would be all these parties happening, like somebody's parents would leave, and everybody would go to that person's party. Not that I never did that, I did one or two, but I just would be like more preoccupied with making sure that I was home to put pause between commercials for Dragon Ball Z, you know. So I was that kid, and that kind of led me, to I knew I wanted to go into animation. My dream has always been to tell my own original stories through the animation medium, but as I've gotten older and wiser, it's just like just film, just the film as a canvas, just cinema as a storytelling tool, and obviously animation is a huge part as a medium, for me. But that led me to going to school for, I studied animation, illustration, film. That led me to an internship at Cartoon Network. And that internship at Cartoon Network led me to my first official job on Adventure Time, which then led me to regular show. So,
Well, let's talk a bit more about getting into the industry, like with Adventure Time. How did that kind of come along, and what was it like working on that show?
first of all, that show was incredible to work on. I'm not gonna lie, when I made the transition from Adventure Time to regular show, it was a little rough just because that was the first show that I worked on, but then I quickly became I came to love regular show for itself, and it's something I'm so proud of to have worked on and to have been able to get to the finish line, to the finale. I got to do the finale, the movie, and it was really cool. I mean, I know this is a regular show podcast, but it was really cool. There was a little bit of a time period there where we were kind of sort of able to work on I like to think of it as a sister show, which is close enough. I was able to work on pretty much like just it was just me and JG because the entire crew had left, so they had kept me and maybe a few other artists on to just kind of sort of do the pitch Bible for close enough. Like it wasn't even like greenlit yet. So I literally was cleaning up JG's like sketches. Like it wasn't even from a character design. It was like literally I would get it from JG, and JG just like would come into my office. We would talk about like, I want this like this. And we did kind of the pitch Bible, like even like through the name changes of like at one point it was splitting rent. I have all the files like, that we did, like all the different title changes. Anyways, um, I'm segueing too much into close enough. So how I got into Adventure Time is when I was going to school, to art school in Philadelphia. I went to University of the Arts, RIP. It's no longer exists. But I went to originally for animation, and then I realized that I don't have the patience or the magic as because I consider actual animators like magicians. It's just like, to put life into inanimate drawings and objects is incredible. So I knew I wasn't cut out for that, but I quickly realized through my internship at Cartoon Network that there was all the production of animation, like character design, model cleanup, background design, color, all that stuff could be done. I could do through illustration. Through learning a lot of basic art 101. So I when I had my internship at in 2006 at on class of 3000, that crew was the same crew that would eventually go on to be on Adventure Time. So I was, after my internship, there was kind of like a 2 year gap because Cartoon Network kind of went through that reality TV phase, which is, I still looking back at it, I'm like, how did that happen? Like, who made that decision? I know who made that decision, but I still like to say that. But it's like I guess like anything, I guess they had to try it out, but I'm just like, why? Um, so yeah, it was kind of like a weird 2 year gap because after my internship at Class of 3000, there was really nothing on the network. The only thing I think that was like that was like kind of like the last man standing cartoon wise was Flapjack. And it was funny actually. I think when I had my internship in 2006, JG was already there, and he was actually he was working on Camp Lazlo, I believe. So I remember seeing like JG from afar. Like we didn't meet at that point, but I do remember seeing him when I was an intern. So he was working on Camp Lazlo for Joe Murray, I believe. But anyways, my internship, the wonderful people that I worked with on Class of 3000, I kept in touch with them. And then eventually, when Cartoon Network started making cartoons again, in 2009, I was lucky enough to get on Adventure Time, and I've been in the industry since 2009. So yeah, been pretty fun.
Just want to say, I still, like all these years later, it still feels like such a crazy sentence to say when Cartoon Network started making cartoons again.
Yeah. Well, that's what that everybody, I think Cartoon Network, everybody sees it like, like in different, like, like you look at things like the Golden Age. I look at like regular show, Adventure Time and Steven Universe, kind of like the renaissance of Cartoon Network. It was kind of sort of like the rebirth, because the OG Cartoon Network, was for me as Powerpuff, Dexter. I love Cow and Chicken. It's surreal to think about it. I don't know if I mentioned it in any podcast, but I remember when I was in second grade, which was like around the time I think Cartoon Network became a thing. I think wasn't it 92. I was either second going into third grade. But I remember I was still living in Ecuador, and I told a friend of mine. I said, one day I'm going to work. I don't think I said Cartoon Network, but I said Hanna-Barbera, which is essentially Cartoon Network. So I was already a big like Hanna-Barbera Cartoon Network fan back then. I mean, I was watching Captain Planet. I was watching like all this. I was, anything that Cartoon Network put out, like I was watching it, like even What a Cartoon Show. So even when that was one thing that I kind of stayed with when I moved from Ecuador to the States, that was something that stayed consistent with me was Cartoon Network. And I just, kind of kept up with it even up to the point when I started working. So, imagine somebody like that from second grade, like watching Dexter, and then all of a sudden, like I'm in the elevator with like Gendy Tartakovsky, and it's just like, what am I doing here? So, yeah, no, it's surreal. I mean, even I've gotten to work with so many amazing people up to now, and it's still sometimes like thinking about it. It's there's been a lot of pinch me moments. So yeah.
Well, let's talk a bit about the transition from going from Adventure Time to regular show. What was kind of like the reasoning for that, and how did you find it initially getting onto this new show that wasn't Adventure Time?
Right. Yeah. So I was going through a personal transition in my life around 2012. I was getting married. I was becoming a dad. Um, and Adventure Time, I was so in love with Adventure Time and working on it. I was genuinely a fan. Um, and but as artistically it was one of those things where I couldn't grow. Like I was in the production side of it, so I had been a production assistant as my way to get my foot in the door. And at the time it's I was still an illustrator. I was doing art gallery shows on this outside of Cartoon Network, so I was doing as an artist I was keeping active. But the guys on Adventure Time were so specific about the artists that they wanted on the show. They were very picky, very selective, and I don't blame them. That's what makes Adventure Time Adventure Time. And not that I wouldn't have been a good fit for the show. I think I would have been a good fit, but I think there's just like the people that were locked in, and there was no wiggle room for anybody new. So I knew that I couldn't stay. I didn't want to, as much as I loved being on the show, I didn't want to be in the position that I was in. So there was an opportunity. There was kind of sort of like somebody was leaving regular show, which was the previous cleanup artist Eric Lazares, and he kind of gave me a heads up of like, hey, they're testing for model cleanup, and I was already as an illustrator, I was already all my work, and I till this day I clean up in vector. So my work is usually pretty clean, and all my brushes are vector. So for me, model cleanup was the natural transition into joining the animation union, being and getting an animation job. So I tried out, like there were different people that tested for the gig for Eric's position, pretty much, and I got it. Like I mean, it wasn't like, I don't want to say if it was immediate, but it was like a thing within 2 weeks. And then I had to put my 2 weeks on Adventure Time, and it was one of the hardest decisions I ever made, was writing my letter like of resignation on Adventure Time. But it was hilarious because Adventure Time was on the second floor of the main building, and regular show was on the third. So I literally just went up one floor. It was funny because there was a friendly competition between regular Adventure Time and regular show, sometimes like in the ratings, but they were just two complete different shows. You can't really kind of measure them together because they're just so vastly different. Like I have my favorites, my Adventure Time favorites. I personally like the show earlier on, not that I don't like it later on, but it just kind of turned into something a little bit different than when it was at the beginning. And then regular show, I feel like got it was like a fine wine. It just got crazier and better towards the end. So it was kind of like I got a best of both worlds. I got the what's the phrase, something about cake and keep eat, yeah, but basically I feel like I got best of both worlds for Adventure Time and regular show. So it was fun to start on season one of Adventure Time, and then end my career on Cartoon Network on the last season of regular show. So that was two nice bookends. So and I consider myself very lucky because I don't know. I'm sure a lot of people on the podcast have said the animation industry can be super grueling, and sometimes shows don't last very long. So you're kind of sort of like, jumping from ship to ship. I had the wonderful opportunity of being on two long-running shows, and not having to worry about being without work for a long time. So, and then on top of it, not only did I get to work on regular show, then I got to work on even regular show adjacent things like I mentioned Close Enough, but I also got to work on Sean Sellis's Long Live the Royals. So that was really cool. So yeah, you know.
This might be sacrilegious for me to say. I only started watching it a couple months ago because for a long time, I know you said like there was friendly competition. I feel like in the fan world, it wasn't so friendly. There's a lot of people being like, oh, no, regular show sucks, Adventure Time's better. And I had that like with friends in school. But because HBO Max has only just arrived here in the UK like a couple months ago. And so the first thing I've kind of gone on there and binged was Adventure Time. I did find myself a little more engaged in the earlier episodes when it was just like one-off adventures and stuff like that. I really enjoyed like the last few episodes.
Yeah. Oh no, I mean it was fun for me then to be on regular show and then watch the series as a fan because I like there was so much stuff like I knew a lot of the stuff that was set up so I knew a lot of stuff that was coming, but then the finale and everything like that, like all that stuff was brand new for me, so it was wonderful to see it like just like with fresh eyes as a fan. Like I didn't see any of the scripts, I didn't see any of the storyboards, so it was wonderful to take that show in, fresh again. Yeah. So no, I agree. I agree with you. Yeah, but I agree also on the fact that if you were to ask me what were my favorite Adventure Time episodes, my favorites were when Finn and Jake would get lost in a dungeon. Like those, that to me is peak Adventure Time. So yeah.
Obviously, so you're a model cleanup artist. There may be many people out there who are not sure what that exactly means. So could you just kind of explain what exactly that role entailed?
Right. So the best way I can describe it in fast terms, it's basically digital inking. So it's kind of like inking, like I don't know if people are gonna get this joke from Chasing Amy. It's an old Kevin Smith movie, but there's a joke in there where somebody's signing their comic book, and there's the penciler and the inker, and one guy's like, "Oh, so you're a tracer?" It's like, no, no, no. He's like, no, he's like, I ink on top of the pencil drawing and I enhance it. So that's essentially what I did is I would take the either JG's drawings or Ben Adams, he's a good buddy. I love Ben. And most of the time it was Ben and Bob, and I would take Bob Cavan's prop drawings as well. So I did both character and props and would clean them up. So a lot of my stuff consisted of, most of the time it was just Rigby, like Mordecai and Rigby, like, if whatever they were wearing for that episode, they were wearing like a fanny pack or like sunglasses. So it was like taking the models and, adding whatever they're wearing for that episode. But a lot of it too, because it's regular show, I can tell you from memory, it's just like, a lot of it was just exploding cars. It was explosions, and a lot of cars and debris and normal cars and messed up cars. I remember one of the coolest things that I got to work on that I remember because it was a lot is when I got to work on the movie. And I think it's at the beginning, but Bob did this like whole, like, it was like a whole pan of like just cars, and I remember that took me, I don't know if it took me a week, but it took me at least like a few days just to get through that. So that was a lot of fun. I learned a lot about cars and car perspective and like different ways to like kind of do like little cheats here and there to kind of do things fast. So that was one of the things that, as much as I loved working on Adventure Time, um, on Adventure Time, I think there was only so much that I could friendship wise, I could, because I was more on the production side of things, so I never got super friendly with a lot of the artists. Like, I mean, like we were friendly enough, but like, it wasn't. There was like obviously there was like a separation there. It was, as I don't like to call it a clique, but any not just in animation, but in work related environments. There's the clicks that you thought were only in high school. The clicks go on in every facet of your life. So it does. Animation is kind of like that. It does get like a little clicky, like. But I'm the type of person that really, and I was the same way in high school and everywhere I've always been. I just try to get along with everybody. I mean, I don't try to put anybody in any kind of type of category. I'm just like, oh, hey, I just, I like, I just try and be nice to everybody and get along with everybody. So but I did feel more of a camaraderie with the crew on regular show. Like for a brief time, my friend Thomas Lynch worked on it, and actually, he's the one that the character Thomas is based on. He did a painting. I have this for the 20th anniversary. It's a book that they gave us as employees. Um, there's a lot of regular show stuff in here. I think this is like a card that JG did. What's cool is that Thomas, and I'll give a little like a little tidbit here. So when I interned on Class of 3000, the producer for that show was Thomas's dad. So Thomas Lynch Sr. was the producer on Class of 3000. And I don't think Thomas and I had met during that summer, but I think he was also an intern at the time. So him and I kind of got our career started around the same time at Cartoon Network. So we kind of sort of bonded over that. And he's still one of my good friends today. He's an amazing artist. Everybody should check out his work as Thomas Lynch III. I'm gonna keep talking as I'm trying to look for the piece here, but essentially the character of Thomas is based on him because Thomas, I believe he was kind of the same. He had the same transition as I did. He started, I think, in production on regular show, and then he moved up to doing I think background color for season three, I believe. For this book, he did a painting of Thomas, and he did it like, and it's kind of like, I think it's like lasers are coming out of his eyes, like. So yeah, so Thomas was a good buddy. Bob Cabin and his wife Michelle were really good friends. Actually, one of my favorite episodes. Michelle also was started in production. She would later become a writer. But one of my favorite episodes that from the show is one she wrote, which is like the Goonies one.
The gamers never say die.
Yeah, because that episode is fantastic because not only did Michelle write it, and I think I got to preview it. Like she was, I remember she came. We had like coffee or something, and she was just genuinely so excited because I think she was one of I was one of the first people she wanted to share it with because we both had like a mutual love like for Goonies and like 80s coming of age like kid movies. So then when like I got it to clean up, one of my favorite props on the show was I think the actual like cover for the game, which where I remember distinctly. It was like, two dudes like jumping in the air, uh, you know. So that episode was genuinely super, super sweet. Like it was so sweet that I remember when we actually when it came back, when we got the animation back, like it almost got like a little tear out of me. It was so like sentimental. But sorry, I segued. Yeah, so Bob and Michelle Cabin and Ben, and the production was super nice. Paula Spence, my art director, she's always super sweet. Yeah, man, everybody on that show is great. JG, I didn't really get to know super well because he was just a workhorse. He was just always just like in and out. He would just get his work done. That's something I admired very much about JG. He was just like super like laser focused. Like, but anytime I asked him like, hey, what about this or that, he genuinely like would engage with me and like be like, okay, yeah, da, 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 da. But he would always be just very just kind of like, like very much just like let's get this stuff done. And he was just a pleasure to work with. Sean was wonderful to work with too. Sean is I could never figure him out, but he was just kind of more on the quiet side. But he's just like, I know, like, he's just like a creative genius, that guy. Just I got to know him a little bit more when we worked on Long Live the Royals. But yeah, everybody on that show, fantastic. Sorry if I'm forgetting for many. There's so many amazing people. Calvin Wong, just so everybody on that show was just fantastic to work with. Owen Dennis, like um, Toby, all those guys. They're fantastic. Great. Yeah. So
I'd like to know just on terms of like cleanup, you've mentioned like some of your favorite
yeah,
things, but are there any specific designs which you look back on and it's like you peaked there or something?
I pulled. Okay, so some of my favorite things are things that obviously the movie. My other favorite episode to clean up before I forget it is, yeah, and I know you'll tell me the title is the one that is the anime one with the mecha duck.
It's a Brilliant Century Duck Crisis special.
Yes, yes. That was one of my favorite ones to work with because there was like so I think there was reference obviously the intro is a reference to Evangelion. And I love that we like animated like the intro to it. It's just like I actually get goosebumps just thinking about that intro. It's just like I was like I'm so happy that we went all the way like that as an anime fan I was like thank you. That one was fantastic to work on. Um, but some of my favorite things that I got to clean up were sometimes stuff that was not related to the show. Sometimes it was promotional stuff that, like, sometimes, like, we would be in between like episodes or the movie or something. And sometimes, like, merchandise would come in and JG be like, hey, can you do this? Can you do this? And it was like, I think I actually pulled these out because sometimes I would buy some of these things because I worked on them. So this is I've never played this game, but maybe after this interview I'll finally play it. I did the cover for this, so
That's cool.
yeah,
I have my copy like up there. I can't reach and get it now, but yeah,
yeah. I mean, I didn't pull out a lot of stuff for our chat, but this was one, and I think this was the first. That was one. I think the second one, but this was the first one I ever did, and this was I think from a sketch. This was literally from a sketch that JG did, so it was like super quick. But I haven't even opened it; it's still in the wrapper. This was the Mordecai and Margaret pack. So so I did this, and then in the back it's Rigby and Eileen. So little things like that. There's another one. There was like an article on JG, and we literally like we went on the back of Cartoon Network, and it was like a photo shoot of JG like in midair with like the keyboard, you know. And then they were like, here's the photo of JG. Can you add Mordecai and Rigby, like, playing? So I think JG did a sketch, and so then I had to like clean it up and then do the color and then like implement both Mordecai and Rigby and JG all playing together. So I did, things like that were super fun because it wasn't part of the show, but it was part of the show, but it was like kind of like promotional stuff. Like for example, whenever we did like a crew T-shirt, like when we did like the in space, like we did one with like it was like the dome, and like the guys were walking like doing the kind of sort of like the serious action pose walk, like with the explosion going behind. Like JG did like the drawing for that, and like they literally threw it to me like, I clean it up, we're gonna do this as a crew shirt. So things like that were like super fun to work on. So since we're talking about model cleanup, so Eric Lazares obviously did the brushes for the show. So model cleanup, to get back into it a little bit, I guess into the weeds a little bit, is so it's inking. Essentially, it's inking. It's digital inking. It's done in vector. Most animation shows are all vector based, from what I recall. The inking sometimes in Photoshop, but because of scaling, because vector doesn't pixelate. It's done in vector. So every show will have their own sets of brushes. For example, I remember an Adventure Time. It was kind of sort of like a clean, like it wasn't even like a thick to thin. It was just kind of sort of pretty thin. but it was clean. It was a clean line. When it came to regular show, since I was used to working pretty clean on my own work, um, obviously I inherited the brushes from Eric because I got all the files, and I had to pretty much like match all the episodes. But I being me, I still kind of like not being a perfectionist, but I still tweaked the brushes and made them my own. So it's not something I think you'll be able to notice like from episode to episode because once like we send it over to overseas and they animate it, it's but on the model packs you could see that there was like a more of I don't want to say cleaner. Eric's brushes were a little bit more chunky, and I kind of sort of took the pencil like rough line and I kind of sort of like streamlined it a little bit, but there were still things like we had to adhere to the show's vocabulary, like like whenever the characters eyes, like it's like JG draws like the Muppet eyes, but like they would always have to overlap. The only time they don't, I think they don't overlap, it's when it's a front view, yeah, like your hat. um and I remember Rigby's eyes were always very specific because it was like I remember it was like two of the balls like merged together, and then like at the inside of that. So I remember every time I would get a Rigby model, it was like, okay, I'm like, that's one thing I had to always like kind of keep consistent. What else? What else with cleanup? I'm trying to think. Yeah, I mean, I remember when the movie happened, the movie and the show kind of overlapped a little bit. And oh my God, I'm like so thankful that they offered us overtime because that schedule was insane. It was like working on the show and the movie. One of the coolest things that we were able to be a part of as the crew is when JG like pitched the movie to us. And it was like an epic version because obviously for the final version that we saw, like it was much more cut down, but man, he like had picked like some really cool song choices that obviously didn't show up on the final movie. But I remember like the one song that he chose for the beginning of this one, it actually became like one of my favorites. I can't think of it right now, but I'll send it to you when I remember. But I remember it was just like it was one of those moments that just kind of sort of when we were in the meeting and the pitch, like it just kind of sort of became plastered in my head. I'm like, oh, this is rad. Like we're getting to experience this like for the first time, and like in an uncut, like unedited version. So yeah, just like moments like that were super fun. And I've said this in another podcast, but I remember when I got to clean up the last model of I think I said it incorrectly in another podcast. I thought it said the end on a VHS tape, but it actually says regular show, I think. Um, and I remember that I think that was literally, I think, like one of the last props that I cleaned up. And then when I saw it like play animated, it did bring a tear to my eye because it was just like it was heartfelt in the show, and then but it was also an ending for us like as crew members, so that was it was bittersweet. It was bittersweet. Obviously I got to then jump on close enough, so but yeah, so I try to kind of wrap it all up between model cleanup and then also like moments in regular show as well, so yeah.
Well, just like on the subject of that tape at the end, I don't know if you seen any episodes of the Lost Tapes yet?
I've been seeing, like, I haven't seen any of the new episodes. I've been meaning to check them out, but I did see that that's like a thing that they do. It's like the putting the tapes in. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Like basically that tape is the whole like kind of MacGuffin of the first episode.
Oh, that's hilarious. That's funny. Is it like things that we didn't see like between episodes?
Basically there's like other tapes.
Oh, that's pretty good.
Even Pops didn't know they existed, but then he finds them and he starts watching them through.
That's great. That's an amazing idea. That's how you do it. Like I don't know. It's great to now both see Adventure Time and regular show as a complete fan because I just saw the poster for Adventure Time side quest, and the vibe of that just kind of gives me the same thing as Lost Tapes. It's like kind of going back to the core of what made those shows, you know? So yeah, no, that's fantastic. I can't wait to check out Lost Tapes. Another cool promotional thing that I got to do for regular show was I think it was one of the Comic Cons. I think it was Comic Con 2016. And it's this is another like just straight up like JG drawing, and is Pops fall has fallen asleep, and Mordecai and Rigby have Sharpies. And it's actually a great idea for signatures because Pop's head is huge, so you have all this space for everybody to like sign. So I one of the things that I have is I have signatures from the crew from that poster, and that was another poster I cleaned up. I just do remember that the movie was just heavy duty. It was just we knew everybody leveled up for the movie because it was kind of like it was like working on the show, but everything was plussed up. Like I remember like even the spaceships and all the stuff that we got to work on, like all the different point of views, and you could tell that we were like stepping it up, like a few levels up to make it extra special. It was fun. Yeah.
I still remember as soon as it came out digitally, I was like, okay, it's regular show the movie time. um, I just absolutely loved seeing the characters in not in a new environment, but like in a new kind of in a new medium.
Yeah. Yeah, like a long format. Yeah. Um, yeah, that's one thing that I always was puzzled with Cartoon Network is I think I was like maybe like one of the three people that saw Powerpuff Girls the movie when it came out. Me and my brother and sister went to go see that movie, and there was nobody else. So I think like Cartoon Network after that didn't since it didn't do well, and I think it's a fantastic movie. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful animated movie. I think, but sadly after that, Cartoon Network I think got cold feet on features, and one that I think honestly I think they're working on it now, and I think it's going to do great because it's got like now a huge fan base. But I think they should have done it well, kind of like how SpongeBob did with the first movie. It was Adventure Time. Adventure Time should have had like a movie like right between seasons two and three, just when it was like that peak, you know. And I don't know if I can speak for a regular show on that. I actually feel that the regular show movie came at the perfect time for the show because, like I said, I think regular show was that show that just kind of like sort of just gradually just kept getting higher and higher and higher. And I'm glad that they ended it when they ended it, and that because a lot of shows they don't get to have an ending. They just and I'm so glad that they gave us that, and that JG gave us and the creative team, they gave us an amazing ending for us to do. So it just kind of adds to it, and I think that's kind of the genius thing that you just told me about Lost Tapes. It doesn't take away from that ending. It just adds. So
Just obviously, you mentioned about some shows not getting the ending. I know you worked on close enough like early on, but not like on the rest of the series. But I feel like that's like exhibit A of like a show not getting the ending it deserves.
that was a tough decision for me to go over to another show. It was kind of sort of the same. It was the same way that I felt when I went from Adventure Time to regular show, because I had already worked almost about 5 years with JG, and you know but I had to think of other priorities too, like because I close enough was there was already kind of sort of like a weird transition between regular show and close enough. There was like some studio politics stuff going on there behind the scenes, that where the show basically got unplugged and then it got plugged back in. So it was weird. I got to work on all the like the pitch, the pre-production stuff, like the pilot, all that stuff. And then like it kind of like just went away for like a year. I think it was like a year, and then and I was just like, that was the first time I was just like, yeah, I had to do a bunch of freelance and like find gigs here and there, just to kind of make ends meet. And then all of a sudden, like I was like I had to I was like at a crossroads because I got offered around the almost like around the same time. I had actually started back on Close Enough, but like around that same time when I had started on Close Enough, I got offered a full-time job on another show at Disney. And it was tough for me not only to leave JG and the crew, but it was tough for me to leave Cartoon Network because that was I could still consider Cartoon Network my alma mater. So it was tough for me to leave my alma mater to go to another company that I didn't know how they treated people, how, I had and just to kind of summarize really quickly, I had a blast at Disney. So, but my Cartoon Network year is definitely super special for their own reasons. So, but yeah, that was tough. I got to work on the first couple episodes of Close Enough. It was amazing. I just knew they were going to be crazy. It was like I I remember I think I got to work on the first 3 or 5 episodes. Like I remember the one where it was like the skateboard that like went down the hill, and like this, like the artwork was insane. There was like a skateboard like with a like it was obviously paying tribute to like the old like Santa Cruz and like Power Peralta like designs. But man, that was one of the coolest things I got to clean up, was like this satanic skateboard deck. uh and yeah, I mean, I knew it was going to be like it was like regular show but like on steroids. Like, well, him getting to play more with like the Adult Swim audience, for lack of better words. So yeah, it was like regular show on Adult Swim steroids. So, but yeah, no, it was super fun. And JG, I've kept in touch with him over the years. I shared my short film, Lucky Brave Sunshine. For those who check it out, it's on YouTube. So he gave me great feedback on that. So it's been fun to just keep in touch with everybody from the community. Now I saw that Owen obviously did Infinity Train, and I saw Toei recently did a movie. I still need to check it out. It looks amazing. So yeah, no, it's just been fun to see everybody from the show just kind of do other things, and I know some of them have come back for lost tapes. So it's just something that I'm always going to look back and be super proud of. It's definitely, yeah, for sure. And it's been fun talking to you about like reminiscing about all this stuff, because I genuinely, before, like when you invited me to be on this, like I genuinely had forgotten about this, because I looked at it, I was like, oh yeah, this was the first thing I cleaned up for like promo for regular show. So yeah, no, it's fun. So thank you.
Beyond the things you've mentioned, what would you say are some of your favorite episodes?
Okay, so I loved. I can't pinpoint an episode, but I loved. I remember I stopped by JG's office one time because turned into kind of sort of like a telenovela, almost like a soap opera. I loved the whole CJ arc. I loved like that whole, like I know fans like probably have. I actually don't know like what fans think, but I was personally a fan of CJ, and I think I was biased because it was voiced by Linda Cardellini, and I have a huge crush on Linda Cardellini. So I told JG, I'm like, whatever you do, you gotta JG, not JG. Well, technically Mordecai is JG, but I'm like Mordecai and CJ. I'm like, gotta make it happen, man. They gotta stay together. And he would just like laugh. So I think he kind of knew that he had something good going on, like playing with that. I think, did it become like a love triangle between CJ and
Yeah.
yeah. So yeah, that was something that I, as a fan, and somebody working on the show, I enjoyed watch it like developing. So, and obviously I think Mordecai messed it up. So it was pretty funny. The whole, Rigby and Eileen stuff, super cute, super sweet. Uh, I know there's a couple, but there was one episode with Rigby and his brother that was just hilarious. I'm trying to think of other ones that one that I didn't get to work on. but I'm a big fan of, is excellent. Obviously, many people are a fan of that. The finale obviously was amazing. I love the whole space arc, the dome arc. That was great because I think was that season five. I think at one point we did do promos that was called regular show in space.
Yeah, that's like an alternate title, like we'd consider for season 8.
Yeah, yeah. And I remember, man, I'm like, this is that was another promo I got to do, was like it was them like this was, I think, an actual promo used to promote that season. It's all of them in their jumpsuits and they're like looking up, into space. That was
The season 8 DVD that they released in Australia has,
that's the one I
yeah,
cleaned up. Yeah. So you knew immediately when I described it. Yeah. So yeah, no, that was super fun. Man, I'm sorry I'm blanking out on some of the episodes, but I mean those were the ones like I remember just like, oh man, like I knew like when I was cleaning up, I'm like, man, this show is amazing. I love this show. Like the Gamers Never Say Die, the anime two-parter one, the movie, man, what's another one? I know there was one with a Bowie character that I loved. There was many with it's based on that arcade player guy, Billy.
oh, Garrett Bobby Ferguson.
Yeah, yeah. There was one I think that I got to work on with him that was fantastic. Um, Man, I don't want to go on the computer and look it up because I feel like that's cheating. But yeah, genuinely, those are the ones though, that like kind of like have stuck to my bones. That if like 20 years from now, I'll still remember. They'll still be with me. So yeah.
Kind of on the flip side of that, who were some of your favorite characters?
I man, I loved. I always loved when there was something involving Benson. Just because like I Sam, I didn't get to know Sam, but I was just seeing his demeanor like as like this kind of like shy uh type, person, and then just getting him to see like explode into Benson is just incredible. I just like any of the scenes with Benson were just I always just like yeah. I think that's actually one of my favorite parts in the animated intro of the anime one is like Benson like with his arms crossed, like and like that side view and like and the camera's like passing. Yeah, I love Benson. They're all fantastic. I mean I love that Sam goes from like Benson to like muscle man. Oh, what's one that I really love working on that made me kind of sort of like also reminisce was the High Five Ghost one. It was like with the one where he had a girlfriend, I think. That one I remember. That I remember. Those the more like emotional ones are the ones that kind of like I think stick with me. So yeah, that one. I think aside from Benson, I always find Skip's really amazing just because he has a great story. And it's also, I remember it was super weird when I had to clean him up. He had like six fingers, I think, and the nipples. That was always that was always hilarious. If I had to pick between Mordecai and Rigby, I think I'd probably relate more to Mordecai. But Rigby was always like the little like scamp that you would love to like I don't want to say hate on, but you also be like, oh man, it's just the show wouldn't be the show without, without Rigby messing things up. So, yeah, I mean, loved like the love triangles, the love interests, like CJ, she was great. Trying to think, loved Pops. Pops was yeah, that's another one. Like Sam from Pops to Muscle Man to Benson's incredible. Yeah, I think Pops was the one that I didn't fully appreciate when I started, but by the ending, I was like, oh my God, I think Pops might be my favorite character. Because, there's just something so wholesome and beautiful. I think all the characters, not many shows get to do this weird balancing act of all these emotions and characters. And I think that's what makes regular show super special. It's all these characters just like in harmony, you know? So I think sometimes like I don't want to use Adventure Time as an example, but I think sometimes like, you know, when you would lose the focus on Finn and Jake, it kind of sort of like not lost the magic, but I feel like, you know, that's something I think regular show always worked is always kind of sort of having all the characters something to do. So yeah.
Just
Yeah.
a couple characters you did mention. There's a Benson.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
I've also got a High Five Ghost.
Th- That's all. I actually have the only toys that I have, and I don't have them on here, sorry, sadly, but I have them somewhere in my storage. Is I have I think it was Jazzwares. They did the 5-inch figures. Okay, so correct me if I'm wrong. Did they ever do a Benson? Was there a prototype for
There
Benson?
was a prototype for Benson, which was like a, I don't think it was
Yeah.
5 inch, I think that was like a 3, 4 inch figure. But then they did do another Benson where he's got like a Walkman and a bolt of rape.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because I remember they came out with the 5-inch ones. Those are the ones I collected, and then there was like the 3-inch one. I know there was a Rigby with the baby ducks. There. I wish there would have been more. I wish there would have been more figures, more merch. Like having like a Skips figure would have been like solid. It would have been like the a giant mass, you know. I also found it hilarious. You know, it was like that time period. I think it stemmed from Flapjack, and then you can see it in Adventure Time and regular show. But like these characters with these like it was I call it the Neo rubber hose, where it's like you know these characters with these rubber hose appendages, but like a lot of them like Finn and Mordecai, like you know, and even Rigby with like you know these like tiny like how do you do like articulation like on those things, and that was one of the things I found it funny when I actually got them out of the package was like being able to like stand them up. So I always have to kind of prop them, you know, with something so they stay up.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, like you're like
Here
I
in the
know.
UK, we got like the first range of figures that they did, but the rest of them we never got over here. So I've got the Mordecai and I've got the Rigby. That's pretty much it. Um, but I always like I have to have like Rigby's always sitting down. And then Mordecai is he's usually like propped up against like a book or something, just like with his arms crossed.
Mm. Yeah. I think I had mine and one of them came with the keytar. So I have mine with the keytar. Oh, and you know what? Before I forget, I should add on the thing that I actually did on the show, model cleanup. So, for in perspective for people that don't know, so I would get the character design from either JG or Ben. Most of the time it was Ben. I cleaned up also the like I said the props and the effects from Bob. So it was Bob and Ben were mostly the people that get stuff from. And then once I was done with it, it would get approved by JG. And then after that, all my models would then be sent to Jessica Yost, who was the color designer. So all this stuff, all the time for all the episodes, like she would do the color. She would basically color my stuff, my models. For some of the merch stuff, though, I did both. I did both cleanup and color. So so that was fun. You know what I think? uh, as an exclusive to this podcast is something I've been thinking about, but I haven't said it publicly. I think I'm going to take a lot of since a lot of stuff was ink, it was like black and white. I think I'm going to take a lot of the stuff that I did, like especially a lot of like the special poses and stuff like that, and I'm just going to put it out there for fans to enjoy. I'm going to do like a coloring book. So
That would be really cool.
so yeah. So stay tuned and maybe sometime this year or next year. I guess this year would be kind of like fitting with Lost Tapes. So yeah. I think what I might do is on top of the coloring book, because I've been thinking about doing this for Adventure Time as well, is I'm gonna do like a little zine or like a little diary of just kind of sort of just like my experience and and include behind the scenes stuff that most people haven't seen, like photos and stuff. So I think both projects will probably kind of feed each other. So I'll probably put together like a little blog of like me working there and then the coloring book as a bonus. So So there you go. Yeah, that's hopefully coming soon. Just everybody, if everybody really wants it, just remind me or message me at my at Chogrin on social medias.
Well, kind of on a similar topic to that, obviously you've made quite a few toys for different franchises, and I know you have made some for Adventure Time. Have you ever considered doing the same for regular show?
I've been thinking about it because that's the one that's kind of been it's been eating away at me. I'm like it's tough to pick like a character, because that's what what you had just asked me, like who's my favorite character. There's so many fantastic. I would almost have to like kind of like do an amalgamation like of all of them, but it's like, I do, for those who don't know, I do these, I've kind of sort of, from working in animation, I did a lot of gallery shows, and from the gallery shows, I started doing kind of like sculpture work based on my artwork. So it's basically like 3D versions of my style, like for example, I guess this is like a rough model of the Adventure Time one. It's black, you can't really see it, but I usually do them in my style, and this is my signature, my guru signature, which is just characters with six arms, to make them look like they're a deity or of some kind. And on the back of this one, there's Jake. So I had to include Jake there somehow. So, if I did the regular, maybe the fans can help me, like, with ideas for the regular show one. Maybe like it's about finding the right body. For example, like with this one for Adventure Time, it's still Finn with his two hands, and the rest of the hands are made up by Jake. So it's Jake, like, morphing. So maybe the regular show one, like the body is Benson, but then the other arms are the different characters. Because I feel like Benson has the perfect body to do, like, multiple arms coming out of it. Um, so I don't know. So, but it has perplexed me, and it is a problem. It is a challenge I want to rise up to, and do a regular show on. So that would be great. And I hope they bring back the regular show comics too, because that's another thing that I've been enjoying doing, is doing variant covers for different comic books. And those are ones that are just like itching. I'm like if I can do an Adventure Time and a regular show one, then I think I can hang up my towel, and, like, in my wish list of covers I wanted to do, because I've done a lot of the other ones, other franchises I've been a fan of. Like I got to do a Ghostbusters one, I did a Ninja Turtles one, and the same thing with my toys. I've gotten to do some official ones, like I did a Stranger Things one, I did Kevin Smith one, and Guillermo del Toro one. So yeah, man, I would love to. Thank you for bringing that up. It's a challenge that needs to be defeated, is the regular show one.
'Cause I know you twos have started doing some regular show figures, which I did order instantly as soon as I spent like $100 and just like, yeah, I need to get some because I missed out like back in the day on like the regular show Funko Pops, which are
Yeah.
thousands of dollars if you want to get them all in like good condition now.
Wow. That's crazy. I did notice that U2's like went from, like, they kind of sort of like, oh, we're gonna be like Funko, but we're gonna do like the happy anime eyes, like, to kind of sort of like, make our own brand. But I noticed that they're kind of sort of just doing more like on model, like special blizzard, which is really cool. I think that's awesome, because I feel like before then, I think only like companies like Kid Robot were doing, like, I know they had the license for Adventure Time, and they were doing some cool like on model stuff. So it's cool to see that U2's is doing that now for these shows. So we'll see, maybe, and we'll see. So I'm open, if anybody's from U2's is watching this, I'm open to collabing and doing a regular show guru. So
You've got the portfolio.
yeah, yeah, but trying, so yeah, no, I mean, anything related to both regular show and Adventure Time, I'd be happy. I had such a wonderful time on both. I'd be happy to come back and do anything for them. So yeah. It's fun, but I am excited. I am excited to be creating my own worlds now. I like I mentioned Lucky Brave Sunshine, and I am working on two more short films right now, both animated. So I'm excited to hopefully have those out in a few years, maybe two or three. You never know. You never know. It's a indie animation is it's a battlefield, but well, I know I'll get it done sooner than later. So yeah.
Just to kind of close on like favorites, have you got any favorite like specific moments from your time? It could just be at Cartoon Network overall, but like specifically like on regular show, some favorite moments that you look back on.
Well, like I mentioned like the JG pitching the movie was pretty special. That was because I mean we were all downstairs in the on the first floor. There was like a main. They redid the building, so the building went through some different stages. But I like to say basically when Adventure Time and Regular Show were in their prime, they did like a whole remodel of the building. And on the first floor, I think that conference room was always there, but they spiffied it. They made it like more. They gave it more bells and whistles. And I remember that one of the first that when that room kind of sort of premiered to the studio. That's what that was one of the first things that we had there was JG's pitch for the radio show movie, and it did feel like a big deal, like because when you work in and out of animation, some days just feels like, oh, another day at work, but that was one of those like, oh, this is special, this is like a moment in Cartoon Network history. So I can share my Mark Hamill story because I think I was still working on Adventure Time, but Mark had just come out of the recording booth for regular show, and I was giving a tour to some students that were from out of town. So sometimes, like they would pick some of us, like I think they picked me just because like. Uh, I guess I was a people person. I was like easy to talk to people. I don't know, but in any event, we were literally like at the entrance like of like the what do you call it, the reception of Cartoon Network, and out comes like Mark Hamill from recording, and this is Mark Hamill. I think he had just shot The Last Jedi. Um, so Mark Hamill looking pretty snazzy. um, and we didn't know each other, but he did one of the sweetest things. He said he looked the entire group of students that I was with. They basically their jaws dropped like when Mark Hamill was coming, and Mark saw that I was basically the person in charge of the group, and Mark stopped and he said, "You guys are in great hands with this guy." And he just did it, just class act, like didn't really know who I was, but like he just like he's like, this guy's gonna give you an amazing tour. So as soon as Mark exited the studio, I looked at the group and I said, that's gonna be the highlight of the entire tour. So I said it's not gonna get any better than that.
All downhill from here.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, obviously, I think like I gave him a tour of the studio, and like they had, yeah, but that's a fond memory that I have. Because then later, I don't know if I'm remembering correctly. I don't know if Mark. Oh, here's a great memory. The premiere of the movie. So two wonderful memories from the movie was the pitch of the movie and then being there at the premiere with my family for the movie. Like everybody dressed up nice, like they picked a theater in LA. So having a an actual movie theater premiere for the movie was really special. So it kind of sort of like it was like a nice bookend to the original pitch. It was like it like cemented, like it made it like, oh man, like we went through that journey from beginning to end. So that was a lot of fun. And I think there was an after party on the rooftop afterwards. It was super fun. Mark Hamill, I think, recorded like a special message for the crew. Um, so that was super fun. This I didn't get to work on, but I remember it because it was insane. It was one of the Comic Cons. Ben Adams, I think he worked on this for months. Ben Adams did like that crazy "Where's Waldo" Comic Con poster, and I remember him working on it. Like I would go into his office, and he would be working on like one section of it. Because I'm not gonna lie to you, I actually got like I panicked because I was like, oh my God, I'm gonna have to clean this up. This is gonna be insane. This is gonna be absolutely insane. And um, and I would have been, if they would have given it to me, I would have been delighted. But because I know a lot of those promo stuff, they just want it like immediately. It would have been crazy. And I think Ben, thankfully, they were able to Ben worked really clean on those because he had been working on it like off and on. They were able to just just use his drawings, and that's like the final poster. But I mean, I have one of them. I have the version that has both the night and the day side. So that to me as a fan is something that I mean I need to get that frame someday and figure out a way to how to display both. So maybe like a two-sided like the frame that like and then like I'll just like kind of like rotate it like 1 month I'll have it at night and one day I'll have it.
You could
So
cut cut a hole in your wall that's perfectly frame sized, and then like in two different rooms, you could have like one side of the poster and the other side.
oh yeah, yeah, totally, absolutely, absolutely, yeah.
It would have been very concerning if I was invited to the regular show premiere because I was a kid. If I did go to that premiere, I got something which I think would have been perfect to wear. Um, this is a High Five Ghost bow tie.
Oh my God, that's amazing, incredible.
I found it was on eBay for like $20, and I was like,
That's the perfect character for a regular show bow tie, by the way. So classy.
in terms of the poster, that's like on the top of like my grail list. I wish I went to that Comic Con. I remember back in the day, I really wanted to go to Comic Con, but I was like 12 years old, maybe.
Oh,
I was too young to be making those to be making a trip out to San Diego by myself.
oh, totally. I mean, it's
Um,
such a massive event. Yeah,
Hoping to find one secondhand on eBay or something, one that's still been taken good care of. Because I think that's like the ultimate. It's got like every character from like the first four seasons on it.
I think so. Yeah, because that came out like I think I ended my run on the show in 2017, 2016. It gets blurry. It gets blurry between there because I think I don't think I even had a week off. I remember I cleaned up the regular show VHS tape, and then I think the following week I was already on Close Enough. So, I not to make it look like I wasn't like paying attention to you. I was flipping through this book, so I found some other cool artwork in the. There's actually a lot of there's a fairly a good amount of regular show stuff on here. That was actually maybe I'll share with you when I send you some of the pictures I'm going to send you. What I actually did a rough uh, for an alternate comic. I was when they were doing the comics. Was it Boom that did the comics? Yeah, there was a one point I was gonna do a variant cover, but it just never crystallized. But I'm thinking about actually what I might do. I might include it in the zine that I might do, or I might do a limited run screen print. But I have this drawing that I've always wanted to finish. It's of Mordecai and Rigby like literally just like punching out of a wall. It's just kind of very like it screams very like it's more 90s more than anything. But I think I'm gonna make it like a 3D print so you can wear the anaglyph like glasses. This is another fun one that's like the characters like melting.
I think they were selling that as like an art print on the Cartoon Network website.
Yeah, yeah. This one I think got. I think this one got. This one got kind of sort of spread around a little bit more. I should be mentioning the artist names too as I'm showing it. Sorry, that one was by Eric Lacombe. He's somebody that I think I worked on a couple art shows with. But anyways, oh, I did do. Uh, I'll send you the picture. I did do. There was an art show that was, I think, both regular show and Adventure Time for that was done by Mondo, and I did a Finn and a Mordecai. And the Mordecai, he has like his power glove. Just because I love that kind of stuff. Like one of my favorite characters is Hellboy. So anytime a character has like a giant like fist like right hand, it's like it's pretty rad. So
We will talk a bit about Close Enough. We're the same people that run the Close Enough wiki.
oh, perfect.
How was it going from like being there at the earliest days of Close Enough, working on like pitch Bibles? Was there anything that you're able to share that was maybe in there?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I'm gonna get in trouble for this, but like, I think when the show actually came out, I think I was one of the first people that might have like not leaked, but like, I was like, I think like when the internet, like the first like behind the scenes things like of the shows, like early look and everything like that, I think came from me because I posted it. And I posted it on my Instagram, and I think now it's part of the wiki. So you guys probably got it from me. So yeah, yeah. I'm gonna have to go. Those posts are still on my Instagram. So once the show comes out, it's all that stuff is safe to share. So yeah, no, I'm yeah, totally happy to share stuff. I think one of the biggest things that change, or I should say characters, there was a lot of different characters changing. There we did like that. I remember we did that scene. I don't know if it was like the credits or it was a promo, but it was the characters all like sitting down on the couch. And we did like, oh man, I think we did so many I forgot, I lost count because we kept changing characters. There was even like a character that was completely cut out, and we even did like animation on him. Like there was an animation of that character like on an acid trip, like where you literally see him like losing his skin. It's like him like on a couch and he's like ah, and like I think I was the one of the first people to like reveal that. Like I just like here it is. So
I think I know the character you're referring to.
yeah, I
They
forget his
changed
name.
that to it being Josh.
That's right. I completely forgot that all that stuff that a lot of the stuff that we did for the pitch Bible actually ended up getting animated to like into a sizzle reel. Yeah, because like I don't think one of the things that made it, there was another character too that got animated. There was a scene where there was a a clown dancing on top of a table. That had a character that got cut out that eventually became the guy's best friend, but it looked very much like Benson. It had like a Benson he had like a Benson nose. And I don't know if he was going to be voiced by Sam, but I know that character changed. Uh, you know, so yeah, that was one of the fun things about working on that show was seeing like the pitch, the sizzle reel, and then like the final. Because I remember it had been a while. I think it had been like almost a year until the show got greenlit again, and they brought me back on to the full season one, and now JG, like I opened up the file with the original lineup, and JG like, oh, he's like, this is the lineup now. And I was like, oh, okay. And I had to clean up that lineup because it was like, they had finally kind of cemented on who the characters were going to be. So some of them stayed the same, like JG's character, his wife, and the daughter. They kind of those are the characters that basically stay consistently the same. So yeah, but yeah, that's all I can remember offhand right now. But yeah.
Would you say are the cleanup days behind you, or is it still something that you're happy to return to?
You know, if I think I don't want to say they're behind me. Like if somebody offered me an opportunity to do cleanup, I gladly do it. Just as a gig. but I think creatively as an artist, as a storyteller, because that's what I ultimately see myself as, is a storyteller. Because I've done now, I've written children's books. I find the toy medium as another way of telling stories. Especially with, when a character has six arms, there's many things you get many things going on. You can be saying, yeah, I've just kind of sort of been, and it's funny because I did a lot of that stuff outside of work while I was working in animation. So I can still say that I'm working in animation, just working on my own stuff. I think if I ever did go back to a show, not necessarily Adventure Time or regular show, but if I did go back to another series that wasn't mine, I, probably would be more interested in the role of art director. Um, just that's something that I think I would genuinely artistically find challenging and fun. But right now, I'm just kind of more interested in, kind of creating my own worlds and seeing where that goes. So we'll see, but definitely never say never.
And on that, if you were asked to return for the new series on Cleanup,
Yeah.
would that be something you'd?
Oh yeah, dude. I definitely, it would be like if they asked me to do anything on that show, it would just be fun. It would be kind of like a summer barbecue almost, like just like a hangout. Like, I don't know. It's so weird how things are set up now, because I feel like I got to experience it like on its high when we were just kind of going full steam. It was just like nonstop. I don't know how it's set up now, but if like they said to me like, "Hey, um, come and work on a couple of episodes and stuff like that," I definitely would say yes in a heartbeat for sure. Yeah.
I think we've kind of touched upon this a little bit, but who or what would you say are some of your biggest inspirations to do the work that you do?
It always goes down to, I mean, stylistically, it always goes down to Tezuka, Osamu Tezuka, and Abai Works. Those are my two go-tos. To add to that, especially on the Abai Works side, for those who don't know, Abai Works is the person the co-creator of Mickey Mouse. I always like bringing him up because I don't think he gets enough love or credit, so I always like to mention him. And on that side of like the rubber hose, because he's from the rubber hose era, is the Fleischers, the Fleischers and EC Seagar, Popeye. So Popeye is a huge, actually, that's something that this kind of, it's regular show related because but Bob Cavin and I would that was something that's something that we still kind of sort of every once in a while it's anything Popeye related. um I did a Popeye 85th anniversary official art show in LA. I think it was 2014, and yeah, Bob was one of the artists. He did this really cool piece where he did like he was already I saw him in his cubicle. He was doing like kind of almost like a Popeye a day, but he was doing Popeye like in different styles. Like he was drawing them stylistically different. And I think for his piece for that show, he took all the post-its and just like put them all together and like framed them. It was like one of my favorite pieces in the show that Bob did. So that was one of the cool things is like, from working in the animation and working especially in that studio is like, doing a lot of some outside stuff, with some of my friends and artists that I work with. So that was really cool. I completely just blanked on the question that you asked me though. I completely went another direction. Sorry, what was the question again?
Main inspirations.
Oh yeah, so those two, yeah. So Abai Works, EC Seagar, Tezuka. I love Toriyama. Toriyama, I feel, is kind of sort of in the. I shouldn't say sort of. He is in the league of Tezuka. Um, I'll name some more obscure ones that maybe some other people should check out. I love Shotaro Ishinomori. He kind of worked in hand with Tezuka. I love everything that he did from Kamen Rider to Cyborg 009. He's the father of Super Sentai. Um, he did an amazing Zelda Link to the Past manga that everybody should check out. It's not canon. I don't think anything in Zelda ever is, but since there's so many different timelines, but he did an amazing one in the 90s. It's really cool. Um, I'm probably butchering his name, but Mitsutero Yokoyama, the creator of Tetsujin 28, or other people know him as Gigantor, kind of sort of like the inventor of the mecha genre. I just love I love the early mecha robots that were like chunky and round. There's like a really beautiful aesthetic to that. I think stylistically, those are a lot of my influences. I think as a storyteller, I always love going between like Spielberg and Del Toro. Those are kind of like my two. Spielberg, Del Toro, Burton, and Kevin Smith. There's a little dash of Kevin Smith. I just what I love about Kevin Smith movies, and I think that there's a little bit of a synchronicity there with regular show because I think that JG has to have been I think Mordecai and Rigby fall into that like duo slacker genre. You know, you think of Cheech and Chong, Jay and Silent Bob, and I think, you know, if I actually wanted to do an art when I was doing art show when I was creating art shows, I wanted to literally do a show that I think it was called the Duo Slacker, and I literally I think wanted to do it just because of the time I was working on regular show, and I just wanted an excuse to do a Mordecai and Rigby piece. So so anyway, sorry, I thought I'd add that as a as in there. Yeah, man, I'm just like I take it all in right now. I'm in a big Masters of the Universe kick just because the new movie's coming out, and that was the first toy line I collected hardcore as a kid. I had like every freaking toy. So yeah, kind of like, you know, a mix of everything. I'm a big Ghostbusters guy too. Love that. The Ninja Turtles, big anime, obviously. I mean, like I remember like I when we did that episode on regular show, I think like I was just like um I was just so happy. I was just like, this is incredible. Because I think there even one of, I think even one of the title cards at the end was like a reference to Cowboy Bebop. It was like the robotic hand like on the floor with roses. I was like, this is incredible. I was like, it's like this is one of those pinch me moments. I'm like, I can't believe I'm working on this show. This is great. So, you know, especially when you see your name like on the title card. I was like, this is I'm like, chef's kiss, you know. So yeah, no. Yeah, I think the your question that you asked me, like if I would go back, I think more than anything I would go back just to kind of reunite with everybody because it was such a nice, it was genuinely a really nice crew to work with. They were super fun. Another somebody on that show that I don't know if you'll be able to get him on, but kind of an unsung hero is Robert Alvarez. He would always get mad at me because I'm like, you worked on everything from my childhood, and now I get that because you know, I would like, I think one time I went to the movie theater and I was wearing. I think it had some time had passed, and I was wearing my regular show crew. It was like a hoodie. It was like a crew hoodie, and somebody there at the movie theater is like, oh, he's like, oh, you got to work on that show. He's like, that was my childhood. And I was like, oh, I feel so old. I felt like, don't get me wrong. Don't get me wrong. I felt so, the first feeling is like, I'm so honored. I'm so honored that, you know, somebody like, you know, that's like their favorite show. But at the same time, it was like, oh God, has that much time gone by? So,
Just some guy walking along, like holding his child's hand or
yeah,
something.
yeah. Yeah. Yeah, you know, that is this that's weird, right? That isn't that weird that sometimes like shows like we were talking about like, you know, putting things in categories, but you know, so I feel like regular show and Adventure Time, you know, and I obviously we can mention a bunch of other shows, but they do have kind of like this timelessness to them. Like I do think that they will kind of sort of like, you know, influence different generations. It is kind of niche. It's not for everybody because there are some things on that show that you kind of do need to know the reference for to kind of sort of like get it. But what I like about it is that even if you don't, even if you haven't seen it, they kind of remix it in their own way where they still kind of make it make sense in the episode. So yeah, because I mean, what was it like? the characters that we have, like the cosmic babies, they're obviously like a riff on Marvel's The Watchers. So, things like that, so that's actually one of my favorite things that I remember from the show is like seeing all the kind of like the bootleg or like the alt, like the tributes, of characters based on real people and things. That was some of my favorite stuff. Yeah.
If there's anyone out there who wants to work just in animation or in anywhere in the arts, what advice would you like to give to them?
Oh man. Well, more than anything, what I always tell everybody is be patient. If I had to give myself advice when I started out, is just be patient. Be patient with yourself. Um, you know, it's good to have goals and dreams. And I have always kept mine, like, I've always kept them up here so I don't forget them. But also don't be afraid of spontaneous things happening. Don't be afraid of taking chances. Don't be afraid of learning new things. Just go with the flow. Like, just kind of throw yourself into something and just, experience it. Don't be so much in a rush of like, I have to do X, Y, and Z. More than anything, whatever you do, whatever you decide to do in animation or whatever thing just be passionate about it. Just be that's a thing that I feel some people sometimes just quit, and hanging in there and wanting to do it is honestly half the battle. So just be passionate, be patient, and surround yourselves with things that you love. For me, I'm constantly like, I think a very important thing of being an artist is keeping your inner child alive, or the things that inspire you. So I'm constantly surrounded or stimulated, I guess. I stimulated by, like, things that inspire me and make me want to do things. Like sometimes I'll look at a toy and I'm like, oh, that toy is really cool. The hair on that toy is really cool. And then sometimes, that'll help me problem solve something that I'm working on. So yeah, surround yourselves with the things that you love, artists that you love. Like a lot of times people ask me like, how did you find your style? And I feel like a lot of times people get stuck in this thing where like, I don't want to copy an artist, and it's totally okay to, if that's where you that's totally okay place to start, is copying somebody else's work, because by doing that you're figuring out, first of all, your vocabulary and how to like draw like different things. So, I remember when I had my internship, my mentors at the time, Bob McKnight and Ken Boyer, amazing legendary animators, they told me like, so who do you like, and who were the people that those people liked, and just like that. And if you're going to be going into animation and or any of these things that involve like drawing figures and stuff like that, I'd say figure drawing is very important. Drawing from life is very important. Just whatever you do, just be consistent with it. Whatever, the more time you put into it, the better. It's like the same thing with writing. I was a little rusty. I was a little rusty from when I did my first short and then going back to my second one. But once you put that discipline of waking up like every morning or whatever your schedule is, and putting the time into writing it, by the time you do your fifth or sixth draft, I'm like, who wrote this? This is amazing. So, so I think I always try to do projects that challenge me and always want to bring out the best in me. I think anything that you do, always try to give 110% of yourself. Sometimes you won't be able to, but you always want to put your best work out there. And something as I've gotten older too is sometimes like I am a bit of a perfectionist, and I have learned sometimes when to stop a project and move on to the next one too. You have to also, you want to put your best work out there, but you also want to, sometimes, because perfection, there's no such thing. It doesn't exist. So that's something as I've gotten older, I guess wiser, as I've learned, is like, okay, this thing that I tried to do maybe didn't work, but maybe what I learned from it I can apply to the next thing. And that's something that I found in a lot of projects. For example, like I wanted to do a cover for one thing and that didn't work out. But the drawing that I did for it, then I applied that same kind of like, pose or something for something else, and then it was able to materialize through something else. So, so for anybody out there, passion, consistency, and just be a nice person, you know, and you'll meet wonderful people and go very far. So that's the best advice I can give. Yeah.
And is there anything that you can talk about that has maybe come out recently or that's coming up that you'd like to promote?
Let's see. I'm currently selling some Jay and Silent Bob toys that I did. I did both Jay and Silent Bob as Mallrats. I don't have them on me, but I'll send you a picture so you can show them. They're available at my store. So I did that. I did uh, Jay and Silent Bob as rats. They're kind of cool, actually. I feel like they would kind of fit. Now looking at them, they would kind of fit like in regular show a little bit. Um, so I have those. We did six colorways. This is the current colorway that I have available at my store is the what I like to call the tune colorway, which I kind of sort of like did sort of like pastelly tune colors with them. They're fun. There's I don't know if I should even promote this because I know they sell out. But there's a Magic the Gathering Garfield card coming out that I designed for those Magic fans out there. That's getting dropped on June 15th. So I don't know if this when this will come out, but maybe by the time this comes out, you can find it on eBay. But if you can't find it, I most likely will be selling my artist proofs on my shop. So be on the lookout for that if you're interested in stuff like that. So yeah, I did some stuff for Magic the Gathering. I have the toys that I have available right now are my Jay and Silent Bob Rats. I also have available. This was released in 2024, but it's still available if you would like one. I did a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Guru. That's available online from Kid Robot. Well, I designed it. It was manufactured through Kid Robot, and yeah, check out my short film Lucky Brave Sunshine on YouTube. You can watch the full short film on there, and hopefully within this year or next year, I'll be announcing my next two films. So, yeah. Oh, and this is kind of sort of I have to throw it in there because it's still available and it's like a yearly now it's become like a yearly tradition for me to promote in the fall. But I have a children's book that's inspired by Guillermo del Toro's childhood. It's called Kid del Toro. It was written by me and illustrated by my friend Pacoto, so check that out too as well. So
And where can people find you on social media?
I'm at Chogrin, Chogrin at basically every social media. So for the most part, it is just Chogrin. Some of them are Chogrin art, but for my important ones like Instagram, YouTube, I almost said Twitter, but you know what? I am going to call it Twitter because it's still Twitter to me. It's still Twitter to me. Yeah, you can find me at Chogrin. I think my Facebook art page is Chogrin Art, and then my website is just chogrin.com. So yeah, just try to keep it pretty simple. So yeah.
Awesome. Well, Chogrin, thank you very much for joining us today. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you, Jordan. Appreciate it.
Thank you once again to Chogrin for joining us for this interview. If you'd like to see more of his work, then make sure you follow him on social media at Chogrin. All of his links will be in the description. Next time, in a first for the interviews, we will be speaking to two guests with John Roth and Albert Fox, who are responsible for composing the soundtrack to the entire series. Here's a preview.
Yeah, I think a soundtrack would be great. Or I even thought, what if we did like a tour? Like other people, they get to do here's the music of Minecraft or whatever, and it's like, why do they get they get a show and like
Just
beat
the
up?
cartage alone for 150 pieces for that drum set, just that blows the budget
No, just do it.
completely out of the water.
You just get the Drumatron, like that's it. Just roll that
The
out.
Drummatron PI to do it.